Welcome to Prague, a city where medieval history meets modern charm, in a way that you will not believe. Here, even the unpredictable February weather adds to the adventure. In this video, we are going on an epic journey, exploring the little corners of this amazing city, all that of foot. We have walked tens of thousands of steps, over 3 days, and spent hundreds of hours to edit this 1.5 hour long video. So buckle up, because for the next 90 minutes or so, it's all going to be just about Prague. We start right here, at Wenceslas Square, or Václavské náměstí, as the locals call it. And before we continue any further, I want to apologize for mispronouncing some of the local terms. I hope that you will not grill me for this. You are about to witness one of Europe's most beautiful and breathtaking cities. And I was skeptical at first, but by the end of our visit to Prague, I touch my heart and agree that it is definitely one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Before we dive in, let's get our bearings. Prague, or Praha, is the capital of the Czech Republic and one of the most visited cities in Europe. Nestled right in the center of the continent, it's a cultural crossroads with influences from Austria, Germany, and even Italy. With a population of around 1.3 million, this city is compact enough to explore on foot, yet packed with history at every turn. Getting to Prague is easy, and if you're flying in, you'll land at Václav Havel Airport, just a 30-minute drive from the city center. Trains and buses connect Prague to Berlin, Vienna, and Budapest, making it a perfect stop on any European adventure. Once you're here, the best way to get around is by walking or hopping on one of the city's iconic red trams. If you choose to walk, then we recommend you do some homework and plan your route in advance. If not, it is easy to keep going around in circles. And you will end up like us, a lot of walking, a lot of U-turns, especially in the older part of town, and a lot of steps, tens of thousands of them. We are in February, and the weather is slightly unpredictable. And it drizzled this morning, but now it seems that the sun is finally out. So, it's a perfect morning to walk. But before we get lost in a lot of walking, let's kick off the day the right way, with something warm and sweet. And if you are ever in Prague, you should try this place. What better way to start the morning than with rich hot chocolate and a bite of something sweet? The sign above the entrance reads Mad Rabbit Bakery, and the faint smell of fresh pastries and chocolate fills the air as we step inside. Nothing beats a chilly Prague morning quite like a warm cafe, and we've found the perfect spot. Step inside, and you're immediately wrapped in the aroma of freshly baked bread and melted chocolate. But I was blown away by the decor the moment I stepped inside. And while I am sitting and enjoying the hot chocolate, my husband is going to give you a little tour, so let's cue the music for this. So what do you think of this place? And would you visit it? A few steps away from Mad Rabbit is this amazing shop. The name is very fitting. It is called The Playground, and once you step inside it is literally a playground. If you're into pop culture, comic books, or just want to relive your childhood, this place is a goldmine. It's not every day you walk into a shop and come face to face with a towering Iron Man or a life-sized Darth Vader. It's a big toy shop, and not just for children. And step inside as an adult, and this will awaken the young child in you. My husband spent a lot of time admiring his favorite Marvel characters, like the Hulk, the Iron Man. I walked around, looking at all the dolls, and the puppets. And when my husband started asking if these life-sizes Iron Man armor will fit in our house, I thought this was the signal for us to get out of there. With our sweet cravings satisfied and a quick detour into geek heaven, we continue our walk along Nabshi Koper, which is one of Prague's most famous shopping streets. This road is a historical divide, separating Old Town from New Town, and it leads us straight to one of the most iconic landmarks in Prague. And it is the Powder Tower, or as the locals call it, Prašná brána. But even before we reached there, I was distracted by the many shopping malls along the way, and without realizing it, I somehow walked into one, just out of curiosity. The shopping malls in Prague are truly welcoming, and I think I could easily spend hours here, shopping. I was flirting with the idea, but suddenly my husband pulled me away, and reminded me that we had a long walk ahead of us. There it is. Prašná brána, or the Powder Tower, standing tall and proud, like a gateway between Prague's past and present. If this tower looks like something straight out of a medieval fairy tale, that's because it kind of is. This was one of the original 13 city gates that once protected the old town. The Gothic design, the darkened stone, the towering presence. Well, it all tells a story of Prague's past, a time of kings, battles, and city defenses. This gate was originally used as a storage facility for gunpowder in the 17th century, hence the name. This tower was built in 1475 during the reign of King Vladislav II, and it was meant to be a grand entrance to the old town and part of the coronation route for Bohemian kings. The Powder Tower isn't just a historic relic, it's a gateway, quite literally. Through it, we step onto Cseletná Street, one of the oldest streets in Prague, filled with charming cafes, souvenir shops, and centuries-old buildings. This street was part of the historic royal route, the path Bohemian kings took during their coronation processions. But before we continue any further, let's rewind first, and let's go way back. Prague's history stretches over 1,100 years. It was founded in the 9th century and quickly became the seat of Bohemian kings, Holy Roman emperors, and Czech rulers. In the 14th century, under Charles IV, Prague was the political and cultural capital of Europe, giving us many of the stunning buildings we see today. During the 20th century, Prague endured Nazi occupation, then 40 years of communist rule. But in 1989, during the Velvet Revolution, the Czech people peacefully overthrew the regime, and Prague was reborn as a democratic capital. Today, it's a city of freedom, art, and culture, blending old-world charm with a fresh, modern energy. So what makes Prague so special? Well, keep watching and I'll tell you more later on during this video. And don't forget to subscribe if you have not done so yet, and do leave us a comment and let us know what is your favorite part of Prague. Vltava connected the Powder Tower to Prague Castle, winding through the heart of Old Town. One of the coolest things about Vltava is the house signs. And back in the day, before street numbers were a thing, houses were identified by these beautifully carved symbols. Vltava Street will also lead us right into the heart of Prague, known as the Old Town Square. But before we go there, we're making a quick detour to visit a place that many travelers actually miss, and it is the Basilica of St. James. Tucked away just off Vltava Street, this church is a hidden masterpiece of Baroque architecture, filled with jaw-dropping details and even a rather creepy legend. The doors creak open, and we step into the dimly lit interior. And suddenly, the screen is flooded with opulence, with golden altars, intricate frescoes, and towering marble columns. The interior is Baroque at its finest. And the moment you step inside, you're surrounded by gold, marble, and lavish frescoes. Right at the center, we have the grand high altar, designed by the legendary Jan Bernard Fischer von Erlach. And it's one of the most extravagant in Prague, with gilded statues seemingly floating in the air. This basilica is also home to one of the largest and oldest pipe organs in Prague. And it was built in the early 18th century and has an incredible sound that fills the entire church. I'll leave it to you to find out more about the eerie stories of the mummy hanging in the church. Because for now, it's lunchtime, and there's no better place to experience authentic Czech food than right here at Pivnice Stupácká. It's a legendary pub serving up traditional Bohemian dishes for generations. And today, we're going all out with one of the most famous Czech dishes of all time, the mighty pork knuckle. After a massive, golden brown hunk of slow-roasted meat, glistening with crispy skin, steam rising from it, we were now stuffed and fueled up, and it's time to walk it off. And just like that, Vltava Street leads us right into the heart of Prague, Old Town Square. And wow, what a view! And this is hands down one of the most stunning squares in all of Europe. Mounted on the side of the Old Town Hall is the astronomical clock, and I'll tell you more about it later on. Being here at the heart of Prague, the Old Town Square, is honestly like stepping into a place where history, architecture, street performers, and one of the world's most famous clocks are all in one place. So, let us take a moment and walk around. Just as impressive as the astronomical clock is this absolute masterpiece, known as the Church of Our Lady Before Teen. And with its twin Gothic spires, this church dominates the Prague skyline. The church looks straight out of a fantasy novel, and some people even say it inspired Hogwarts from Harry Potter. Of course, we will come back to this square later and I will tell you a lot more about it, but for now let us continue our little stroll and see what else we will discover along the way. As much as we love the grand, open spaces of Old Town Square, sometimes the real magic happens when you take a little detour. And that's exactly what we're doing now, cutting left into a hidden alleyway right next to this charming restaurant with lemon yellow walls and the name Lippert written across it. The name itself U Radnica means by the town hall, since we're just a few steps away from Prague's famous astronomical clock. The buildings here are hundreds of years old, and many of them were once homes to Prague's wealthy merchants. Now, we step into a completely different side of Prague, where history meets luxury. And welcome to Široká Street, meaning Broad Street, and it is home to some of the city's most high-end boutiques, luxury brands, and stylish storefronts. If you're into designer brands, Široká Street is a place you'll definitely want to check out. This is Prague's old Jewish quarter, and it's interesting how Prague seamlessly blends the old and the new. These luxury boutiques sit inside centuries-old buildings, reminding us that while Prague preserves its past, it's also a city that embraces modern elegance. The side streets are what make Prague's old town feel so timeless. And no matter how many people pass through here, the streets stay frozen in time, unchanged for centuries. We are along Vltava Street, and nearby there's a little-known secret in Prague, one that even some locals don't talk about. Welcome to the Prague Bermuda Triangle, a curious urban legend that has intrigued visitors and conspiracy lovers alike. It is a strange spot in the city centre known for bizarre occurrences, ghost stories, and unusual energy. Some say that people who step into this area feel sudden dizziness or a strange sense of déjà vu, and others claim they've seen ghostly apparitions, particularly near the old buildings surrounding the triangle. Whether you're here for the urban legends, the history, or just a great night out in Prague, this little corner of the city has something for everyone. Alright, folks, if you've been following along with our Prague adventure, you know we're all about uncovering hidden gems, and this next stop, the Church of St. Kastulus, is one you won't find on every tourist map. And just a short stroll away, we hit Hostalská, which is one of Prague's coolest, lesser-known streets. And this area is full of charm, with a mix of historical buildings and local life that's often overlooked by the usual tourist routes. We're making our way down Vízeňská Street, a place with a bit more of a gritty history. This street, which runs parallel to some of Prague's more tourist-heavy areas, has its roots in the medieval period. And the name Vízeňská literally means prison street, and for good reason, as it's believed to be near where a historic prison once stood. As you can see, each turn, each alley, and each road in Prague has a story to tell. And if I tried to tell you everything about them, this will be either the most interesting history lesson, or I will put you to sleep within the next 5 minutes. So let me do this instead. I'll walk you around, highlight the names of the important landmarks on the bottom left corner of the screen, and tell you only the interesting ones, like right here at Prada Shop. For us women, this part of Prague is a must-visit. And I hope that my husband does not edit this video to exclude this part. This is Pařížská Street, and think of it as the Champs-Élysées of Prague. And here, you'll find stores like Chanel, Prada, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Bulgari, Rolex, and many more in this elegant and picturesque part of the city. We are now next to U Starého Hřbitova, and apparently this is the old Jewish cemetery. Nestled in the heart of Prague's Jewish quarter, this cemetery is a hauntingly beautiful glimpse into the city's past. There are over 12,000 gravestones here, but some estimate that over 100,000 people are buried in this sacred ground. But honestly, I am not visiting any cemetery today, so let us keep moving on. Prague's origins date back to the 9th century, when Slavic tribes settled along the Vltava River. And right now, we are slowly making our way towards the Vltava River. As we continued our journey through Prague, we eventually reached Drožákovo nábřeží, a beautiful riverside promenade along the Vltava River. This stretch offers some of the most stunning views in the city, with a perfect mix of historical landmarks, green spaces, and the gentle flow of the river. As we walked along the embankment, the atmosphere felt almost cinematic, with boats gliding across the water, swans floating by, and the golden hour light reflecting off the river's surface. As we continued along Drojarkovo Nabřeží, we walked past the Gallery Rudolfinum, an iconic art gallery housed within the Grand Rudolfinum building. This stunning neo-Renaissance structure was built in 1885, and the Rudolfinum was named after Crown Prince Rudolf of Austria. This is the Josef Manes monument, a tribute to the famous Czech painter. We couldn't help but appreciate how peaceful yet lively this part of Prague was. The Rudolfinum was intended to be a multipurpose cultural center, blending music and fine arts. And it's home to the Czech Philharmonic Orchestra, one of the most prestigious orchestras in the world. Right next to the Grand Rudolfinum, we walked past another significant building, the Faculty of Arts of Charles University. As we continued walking along Drojarkovo Nabřeží, the breathtaking Vltava River stretched out before us. This is the longest river in the Czech Republic, running 430 kilometers from the Šumavar Mountains in the south to its confluence with the Elbu River in the north. This is the Manes Bridge, and actually the Vltava is crossed by over 18 bridges in Prague, the most famous being the Charles Bridge, built in 1357. Once again, do stick around because we will visit the Charles Bridge later on, and you will have the unique opportunity to understand why it is the most famous bridge here in Prague. And for the curious, you can already spot it in the background. Early settlers built communities along the Vltava banks, and by the 9th century, Prague Castle and the surrounding settlements had begun to flourish. The river has witnessed wars, floods, revolutions, and royal processions, making it one of the most historically significant waterways in Europe. Even today, the Vltava is full of life, and if you have time, take a river cruise, whether it's a short sightseeing trip or a dinner cruise at night, because the views of Prague lit up along the Vltava are unforgettable. As we crossed Manes Bridge, we were greeted with panoramic views of Prague Castle, far in the background, and Charles Bridge behind us. On this side of town, the atmosphere changed, with cobblestone streets, Baroque palaces, and hidden gardens that awaited us as we made our way deeper into this storybook-like part of Prague. This part of town is called the Malá Strana, or Lesser Town, in English. The atmosphere here was distinctly different from the bustling old town we had just left behind. Or did I make this observation too soon, because all of a sudden, I was taken by surprise by the loud noises of trams passing by. So let me rephrase that then. The streets were somehow quieter, the architecture more baroque and regal, and the constant clang of trams added an old-world charm to the surroundings. Trams have been a part of Prague's daily life since 1891, and as we walked along Letenská, we saw trams gliding past in shades of red, white, and gold, some modern, some still vintage. Prague's tram line 22 is one of the most scenic routes in the city, passing by major landmarks like Prague Castle, the National Theatre, and Old Town Square. As we continued through Malá Strana, we came across St. Thomas Church, a Baroque masterpiece tucked between the narrow streets of this historic district. While it may not be as famous as St. Nicholas Church, it holds a rich history and stunning interior that make it well worth a visit. Originally founded in 1285 by the Augustinians, St. Thomas Church has a long-standing connection to beer because the Augustinian monks who founded the church also established a monastic brewery nearby, which eventually became today's famous St. Thomas Brewery. Walking further, we arrived at Malostranské náměstí, or Lesser Town Square, where the towering green dome and ornate bell tower of St. Nicholas Church came into view. This Baroque masterpiece was built in the 18th century and is one of the most beautiful churches in Prague, known for its massive frescoes, gold-accented interiors, and an organ once played by Mozart. We didn't go inside just yet as our destination was further ahead. So, we continued walking along Karmelitska, where the trams rushed past on narrow tracks, their cables crisscrossing above us like a web. Finally, we reached our next stop, and this is the Church of Our Lady Victorious, home to the famous statue of the infant Jesus of Prague. This small, unassuming Baroque church has drawn pilgrims from around the world for centuries. Inside, the miraculous statue of the infant Jesus, dressed in ornate robes and a golden crown, stood in a glass case at the altar. The church was originally founded in the 17th century and is located in the Malá Strana district, just below Prague Castle. Let us step inside and I will tell you more. The real star here is the infant Jesus statue, which is said to have miraculous powers. The statue was brought to Prague from Spain in the 1620s by Princess Polixena of Lobkowicz, and it quickly became a symbol of devotion and hope for many people. The infant Jesus of Prague statue itself is small, just about 18 inches tall, but it holds immense significance. It depicts the Christ child, dressed in royal robes and holding a globus cruciger, a scepter symbolizing Christ's reign. Over the centuries, the statue has been attributed with numerous miracles, from curing the sick to helping in times of war and personal hardship. People from all over the world visit to pray and ask for the statue's intercession, and its presence in the church has made the site one of the most visited pilgrimage destinations in Prague. The infant Jesus has been the center of countless miracle stories. In the 17th century, a devastating fire destroyed much of the church, but the statue was said to have been untouched by the flames. During the 30 Years' War, many soldiers who visited the church to pray for protection returned safely, and the statue became a symbol of hope, especially during times of hardship and uncertainty. There is a museum inside the church, adding another layer of depth to your visit. This small but fascinating museum is located in a building adjacent to the church and offers an even richer perspective on the statue's incredible history. The museum houses a collection of historical artifacts related to the infant Jesus of Prague statue and the church's rich history. It displays some of the intricate robes that have been donated over the years, which are dressed on the statue. And these robes range from simple to elaborate, often reflecting the unique cultures and backgrounds of the people who donated them. Many believe that the infant Jesus brings blessings and answers to those who pray sincerely. And there's a special prayer known as the Prayer to the Infant Jesus of Prague, often recited by pilgrims. It's said that the statue will help those who seek its intercession with faith. Whether you're religious or not, the Church of the Infant Jesus of Prague is an incredible place to witness the intersection of culture, history, and faith. And who knows? You might leave with a new sense of wonder and inspiration, just like the many pilgrims who've visited before you. It's moving to witness how something so small, this infant Jesus statue, can have such a huge impact on people's lives. When we left the church, it was already starting to get dark, and to be frank, my legs were starting to hurt. We stopped by a souvenir shop, mainly to catch our breath, and to give my husband the opportunity to decide what's our next destination. There is this expression that says, to bite more than you can chew, and it felt appropriate here. Before we continue any further, I needed a break, mainly to have some hot drink as the weather was starting to get colder, as night fell, and I also needed to rest my feet. We stopped by Murano Gelato, a cafe near the St. Nicholas Church, and it's a great place to pause and recharge. I was craving for something hot, to warm me up, and therefore my husband ordered us a Lamborghini coffee. Well, at least that was what was written on the coffee mug. After our caffeine break, it's time to head towards the Charles Bridge, and now, with the city bathed in darkness, it's a whole different vibe. The sun has set, and the atmosphere shifts entirely. This is also when Prague truly feels magical, also a little mysterious, a little romantic, and completely enchanting. Before stepping onto the Charles Bridge, we first pass through the towering Lesser Town Bridge Tower, which is a striking Gothic entrance that feels like stepping straight into a medieval legend. This tower is actually a duo of towers, with the taller one built in the 15th century and the shorter one dating back to the 12th century, a relic from the original Judith Bridge, the predecessor to Charles Bridge. Together, they form an imposing stone gate that once guarded the lesser town from invaders. At night, bathed in soft golden light, the arches of the tower create a dramatic passageway, leading us onto one of the most famous bridges in the world. As you walk through, it's impossible not to feel the weight of history, knowing that knights, kings, and merchants have all passed beneath these very stones. From up here, Lesser Town looks like something out of a painting, with red-tiled rooftops, winding cobbled alleys, and lantern-lit streets that seem untouched by time. We thought the bridge would be empty at this late hour, and that we would be alone there, and have the opportunity to take lots of photographs. But we were so wrong. And in fact, it felt like the entire Prague decided to visit the Charles Bridge at the same time. Let us keep walking, and let me show you the surroundings. And I know that it is dark and perhaps the video quality not very clear at this point, but I promise, I will bring you back to this bridge, later on, and we will do this when it's daylight. And I will tell you more about the bridge and its surroundings. So do keep watching, and remember to make yourself comfortable on your seat, as we are now just barely 1/3 through this video. Tourists, musicians, artists, and night wanderers, literally everyone comes here to soak in this legendary view. And it's crowded, but that's part of the charm, because Prague never really sleeps. From the bridge railing, we can capture the perfect views of the river below, dotted with reflections of the city lights. And on one side, Prague Castle stands illuminated like a scene from a medieval story, while on the other, the old town glows warmly, its historic rooftops creating a postcard-perfect skyline. The thing I found out about Prague is that the city totally transforms at night. And it was now dark, misty, and alive with energy, with tourists, with street musicians, and with vendors that filled the cobblestone path. And later, when we are in the old town, you will feel that we are in a completely different world altogether. Up ahead stands the towering Old Town Bridge Tower, marking the entrance into the historic district. So follow me and let us find out together what this part of town has in store for us. It is, after all, our first visit to Prague as well. At the old town side, we passed under the grand old town bridge tower, which once served as part of Prague's fortifications. As we stepped out of Charles Bridge and entered Křižovnické Square, two magnificent churches stood before us. St. Francis of Assisi Church on the left and St. Salvator Church was right in front of us. Both are masterpieces of Baroque architecture, carrying centuries of history within their walls. St. Francis of Assisi Church is a Baroque gem with a unique past, and this church actually belongs to the Knights of the Cross with the Red Star, the only Catholic military order founded in Bohemia. Directly across the square stands St. Salvator Church, part of the Clementinum complex. And this church, once Jesuit, is considered one of the most beautiful Baroque churches in Prague. St. Francis of Assisi was built between 1679 and 1685. It was designed by Jean-Baptiste Mathy, inspired by Roman churches of the time. It houses one of the oldest organs in Prague, dating back to 1702, and it is said that Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart himself played on this organ during his visit to Prague. A marble statue of St. Francis of Assisi stands inside, paying tribute to the church's patron saint. On the other hand, St. Salvator Church's main facade was completed in the 17th century, and is heavily inspired by Italian Renaissance architecture, featuring statues of Christ the Saviour and the 12 Apostles. As we left the majestic St. Salvator Church, the energy of Prague's old town pulled us in. And instead of heading straight into the old town square, we decided to take a small cobblestone alley that hugged the side of the church, leading us deeper into the heart of the medieval city. The glow of street lanterns flickered against the Baroque and Gothic facades, casting shadows on the damp pavement, making everything feel like a scene from a historical novel. Walking through its winding streets at night felt almost surreal, as if we had stepped through time, literally. The city's history dates back over 1,000 years, and its labyrinth of alleys and hidden courtyards tell the story of emperors, merchants, and revolutionaries who once walked these same paths. Did you know? The old town began as a merchant settlement in the 10th century, growing into one of the most important trade hubs in Central Europe by the 14th century. By night, the streets we walked felt much the same as they might have centuries ago, and they were dimly lit, mysterious, yet full of life. As we walked, the lively sounds of the old town's bars, restaurants, and street musicians filled the air. And the cold February night was no deterrent, because Prague, at night, never sleeps. Fun fact here. Beneath many of these buildings are hidden medieval cellars, some of which have been turned into underground taverns and restaurants. And the old town is actually built on top of older structures, with many layers of buried history beneath its streets. In fact, the hotel we booked has an amazing underground breakfast hall, and I will show it to you later on, if you stick around. The architecture, in the old town, is a mashup of centuries, with Gothic doorways, Renaissance windows, and Baroque facades, each with its own story. Many of these buildings once belonged to wealthy merchants, who gained fortune during Prague's Golden Age, under Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV in the 14th century. Alright, we have reached the old town square, and it is a famous fairy tale in the night. But nothing in the square is more famous than the Prague astronomical clock. Installed in 1410, It is the third oldest astronomical clock in the world and the oldest one still in operation. The clock doesn't just tell time, but it also shows the movement of the sun and moon, zodiac constellations, and even a medieval calendar. Every hour, a procession of 12 apostles appears through the clock's tiny windows, while the figure of death, a skeleton, rings a bell to mark the passing of time. Legend says that the original clockmaker, Mikuláš of Kárdan, had his eyes gouged out by Prague's rulers so he could never create a clock as magnificent as this one again. The old town square at night is pure magic. During the day, it's a hub of activity with thousands of tourists and street performers, but at night, it takes on a different, almost dreamlike quality. I have not really shown you the square during the day, so let us do that tomorrow morning. And we will come here really early, to beat the crowd, okay? The square, first established in the 12th century, has been the heart of Prague's social and political life for over 800 years. It is surrounded by some of the most stunning architectural wonders in all of Europe, each one glowing under the golden lights. In the center stands the Jan Hus monument, dedicated to the Czech religious reformer who was burned at the stake in 1415 for challenging the Catholic Church. Looking up, the twin Gothic spires of the Church of Our Lady before Tin dominate the skyline. And lit up against the dark sky, they look like something out of a dark fairy tale, standing at 80 meters high. We then came back to the astronomical clock and we stood mesmerized, watching as centuries-old gears and wooden figures moved in harmony. No matter how many times you see it, the magic never fades. There's no shortage of great places to eat in and around the square, whether you're looking for traditional Czech food, fine dining, or casual cafes. During Christmas time, the square transforms into one of Europe's most beautiful Christmas markets, with wooden stalls selling mulled wine, chimney cakes, and handmade gifts. And it is also the perfect place for the New Year's Eve fireworks, making it also one of Prague's best spots to ring in the new year. By now, it was already past 6:30 p.m., but the winter darkness made it feel like 8 p.m. We wandered a little more through the square and the nearby shops, and then we made our way towards St. Clement Cathedral for something very special. Follow us, because I do not want to drop a hint yet. Oh, would you just look at that? It is another amazing photo corner in the old town of Prague. This hidden Baroque church, tucked within the old town, is part of the Clementinum complex, an area steeped in history, once home to the Jesuits and now a center of culture and academia. Its ornate ceilings, grand chandeliers, and centuries-old frescoes made the perfect backdrop for an evening of classical music. We had booked tickets for a Vivaldi's Four Seasons concert, performed by a live orchestra. The moment the first notes filled the cathedral, we were transported to another time. And the acoustics in the church were absolutely breathtaking. Every violin stroke, every harpsichord note reverberated off the vaulted ceilings, creating an ethereal soundscape. Sitting there, surrounded by history, under the flickering candlelight, we couldn't help but feel that this was one of those once-in-a-lifetime Prague moments, a night of art, history, and sheer musical brilliance. As we stepped back into the cold Prague air, the streets felt quieter, as if the city itself had paused to listen to the music. Or perhaps it was just my imagination, as part of me was still stuck at St. Clement Church. The soft glow of the old town guided us back towards our hotel, and with that, our perfect night in Prague came to a close. Good morning, and as promised, let me tour you around the underground dining hall of our hotel, and you will agree with me, it is simply amazing. Hotel Prague Inn is a historic hotel situated right on Wenceslas Square, offering not just a prime location but also an unexpected architectural delight, and its underground breakfast hall is designed to resemble an ancient medieval cave. As we descended into the lower level of the hotel, we were immediately struck by the atmosphere. And the breakfast hall was a labyrinth of arched stone ceilings, dimly lit by warm amber lights that flickered off the exposed brick walls. It felt like stepping into an underground monastery or a medieval wine cellar. We wanted to spend more time in that underground hall, but I promised to bring you to see the old town square, early in the morning, to beat the crowd. So we set off, and luckily the Prague was still asleep at this early hour of the day. The morning air was crisp and cool, with a faint mist still lingering over the cobblestone streets. The city that had been so alive the night before was now draped in a peaceful silence, a rare moment of tranquility in Prague's bustling heart. Walking towards Old Town Square, we found ourselves in a completely different world from the one we had seen under the glow of streetlights. The Old Town Square is the heart of Prague, spanning about 9,000 square meters, making it one of the largest squares in Europe. It has witnessed centuries of history, from medieval markets to political uprisings and royal coronations. And dating back to the 12th century, this square was once a central marketplace, where merchants from all over Europe traded goods, spices, and textiles. Today, it is one of the most photographed places in Prague, a stunning mix of Gothic, Baroque, and Renaissance architecture. And this is how the astronomical clock looks like in daylight. Without the crowds, we could now fully appreciate the grandeur of the Church of Our Lady before Teen. Its twin Gothic spires, rising 80 meters high, looked even more imposing against the morning sky. Unlike the previous night, when a huge crowd had gathered for the famous hourly show, this time we had the Prague astronomical clock almost to ourselves. We also took note of some of the historic cafes and restaurants surrounding the square, including Café Mozart, with its stunning view of the astronomical clock, a perfect place to sit and watch the world go by. And as promised, after soaking in the peaceful morning atmosphere, we continued walking towards the Charles Bridge, eager to experience it in broad daylight. And this is going to be a complete contrast to our nighttime visit. By the way, this is St. Clement Church, where experienced the Vivaldi concert yesterday night. Here is how it looks like during the day, in case you want to make a mental note for your next classical concert. And further up ahead, you can already spot the tower, marking the entrance to Charles Bridge. As we approached the entrance to Charles Bridge, the morning mist had already begun to fade, revealing the iconic sandstone structure in all its glory. If you still remember, this is the Church of San Francis of Assisi, which is located right next to the bridge. And here it is, Charles Bridge, a bridge that stood the test of time. Built in 1357 under King Charles IV, this 516-meter-long Gothic bridge has connected the Old Town and Lesser Town. It replaced the Judith Bridge, which was destroyed by a flood, and today stands as one of the most important architectural marvels in Europe. Walking across Charles Bridge, you can admire the 30 statues that line both sides, each with its own story, legend, or historical significance. Perhaps the most famous statue on the bridge is this bronze figure that marks the spot where John of Nepomuk, a priest, was thrown into the river in 1393 for refusing to reveal the Queen's confessions. Legend says that touching the shiny golden plaque on the statue brings good luck and ensures that you will return to Prague. You also have St. Luthgard, which is one of the most beautiful Baroque sculptures, depicting a nun having a divine vision of Christ. The crucifix and Calvary is a large crucifix with a golden inscription in Hebrew, and it was added in the 17th century as part of a punishment for a Jewish merchant. We will walk past them and try to see if you can identify them. And of course there are many more, and if you know about their tales and legends, do share them in the comments section. Each statue told a different tale, and we took our time to admire them, stopping to take in the breathtaking views of the Vltava River, with its calm waters reflecting the spires and rooftops of Prague's historic skyline. Unlike the nighttime, when the city lights shimmered like scattered diamonds, the morning light revealed Prague's colors, with the warm ochres, soft pastels, and deep reds of the Renaissance and Baroque buildings. From the bridge, we could clearly see the Prague Castle, perched high on the hill, and we will be visiting this castle in a while. And we could also see the green dome of St. Nicholas Church, standing out among the red rooftops. And of course, we can see the boats on the Vltava River, slowly gliding beneath the bridge. It is also good to point out once more, the two towers located at both sides of the bridge. The Old Town Bridge Tower, which we crossed when we entered the bridge, is located on the Old Town side and was built in the late 14th century under King Charles IV. It is considered one of the most beautiful Gothic gateways in Europe and offers a stunning panoramic view of Prague from the top. In front of us is the Lesser Town Bridge Towers, located on the Lesser Town side. Lesser Town Bridge Towers consist of two towers of different heights, and the taller tower dates back to the 15th century, built in Gothic style. The shorter tower is much older, originally part of the Judith Bridge. These towers once served as fortifications to control access to the bridge and the city. And today, they stand as historical landmarks and offer visitors a chance to climb up for breathtaking views of Prague. We have now crossed the Charles Bridge and we are now back in the Lesser Town. Towering over the Lesser Town Square, St. Nicholas Church's distinctive green dome and bell tower make it one of Prague's most recognizable landmarks. The church was built between 1704 and 1755, replacing an earlier Gothic church that had stood on the site since the 13th century. This was a landmark that Mozart himself once played in, a place where history, art, and faith merged seamlessly. As we stepped inside, our eyes were immediately drawn upwards, and the massive frescoed ceilings, painted with breathtaking religious scenes, felt almost infinite. The golden chandeliers, said to have been made from Bohemian crystal, sparkled in the natural light streaming through the stained glass. Just outside, in the church's square, stood another striking monument, and it is the column of the Holy Trinity. This towering pillar, adorned with elaborate sculptures of saints and angels, was erected in the early 1700s. It served as a symbol of Prague's gratitude after surviving the deadly plague outbreaks that ravaged Europe. In those times, cities would often build plague columns as a form of thanks for divine protection. And today, it stands as both a historical reminder and a beacon of resilience, a testament to the city's survival through some of its darkest times. The Baroque opulence here was overwhelming in the best possible way, and St. Nicholas Church is probably Prague's most celebrated Baroque church, and every inch of it felt alive with grandeur. Alright, now comes the hard part. As you can see, we are starting to walk uphill. The final stretch of our morning walk will take us toward one of Prague's most iconic landmarks, and yes, you have guessed it right, it is Prague Castle. We turned into Tunovska Street, a narrow, atmospheric alleyway lined with historic Baroque buildings and hidden courtyards. This street, one of the oldest paths leading up to Prague Castle, has existed since medieval times and was once a direct route used by royalty, noblemen, and castle guards. As we walked, the incline became steeper, and soon, we arrived at the old castle stairs. These ancient stone steps date back to the 17th century and were historically used by merchants, soldiers, and even emperors making their way up to the castle. This route is significantly quieter than the main roads leading to the castle, giving us a more authentic and peaceful experience. With every step, the view of Prague became more breathtaking, and the city's famous red rooftops stretched out before us, and in the distance. After the final steps of our steep ascent, we emerged onto Hradčany Square, just outside Prague Castle, and were immediately rewarded with one of the most breathtaking panoramic views of the city. Right next to the viewing platform, there's a Starbucks, quite possibly one of the most scenic Starbucks locations in the world. Standing here, the entire historical core of Prague unfolds beneath you. Whether you're a coffee lover or not, it's worth stepping inside to grab a drink and sit on the terrace, which offers even better views over Prague. Oh look, it seems that the dinosaurs are not yet extinct in Prague. From here, it was time to step through the grand entrance of Prague Castle. Right on time. We had arrived just as the changing of the guard ceremony was about to begin. The Prague Castle Guard, dressed in their distinctive uniforms, stood in perfect formation. And their serious expressions and disciplined movements were a reminder of the long-standing traditions of Czech statehood. This ceremony dates back to 1918, when Czechoslovakia first became an independent republic. And the best place to watch is at Matyáš Gate, the grand entrance to Prague Castle, where two massive stone giants in combat flank the doorway. The garden near the fourth courtyard of Prague Castle is a beautiful and peaceful spot that offers a different perspective of this iconic landmark. It's not one of the busiest areas, so it provides a calm retreat from the usual tourist crowds. This hidden gem is often referred to as the Garden on the Ramparts, and it's located just outside the castle walls, along the southern side, giving you a stunning view of the Vltava River and Malá Strana below. The garden is relatively intimate in size but bursting with charm, featuring lush greenery, manicured lawns, and a variety of trees and flowers. It has an old-world feel with stone paths winding through the garden, giving visitors a serene environment for a leisurely walk. This area is much less crowded than the main entrances, offering a more exclusive feel, almost like you're discovering a hidden passage. If you look around, you'll notice some of the architectural features and the Prague Castle's defensive walls that still stand strong today, reminding you of the castle's long and fascinating history. The garden near the fourth courtyard of Prague Castle leads directly to the Powder Bridge. It's a stunning, historic bridge that serves as a connection between the castle and the royal garden area, and it also links to the Hradčany district. Let us enter the castle now, through this guarded gate, along the Powder Bridge, and this immediately sets the tone for a stunning journey through the heart of one of the world's most majestic castles. This path takes us through the imperial stables, an impressive Renaissance-style building that once housed the horses and carriages of the royal family. Entering the second courtyard is like stepping into the heart of the castle. And this vast, open space is surrounded by imposing structures, including the old royal palace and the St. George's Basilica, which stand as reminders of the centuries of royal history that have unfolded here. The courtyard serves as a transition from the more private areas of the castle to the public spaces. Just after passing through the stables, we encounter Cole's Fountain, a beautiful and historic fountain located near the second courtyard. This Baroque-style fountain has stood since the 17th century, offering a peaceful retreat amid the grandeur of the castle complex. Its classical design and intricate stone carvings make it a perfect spot to pause and take in the architecture and natural beauty of Prague Castle. The architecture here exudes a sense of timelessness, with its grand arches and ornate details. And it feels like stepping into a different era, where the royal horses once trotted across these cobblestones, ready to serve the monarchy. Of course, there are several tours of the Prague Castle, which you can book, depending on how much of the castle you want to discover and how interested you are in the permanent exhibitions. As we continue our journey, we cross over to the Roman Catholic parish of the Cathedral of St. Vitus. This parish serves as a symbol of the spiritual life that has flourished here for centuries. There is an entrance fee, if you wish to visit the interior. And be prepared to queue. The Vitus Cathedral itself, with its towering spires, dominates the skyline. As you make your way across the grounds, you can't miss the obelisk at Prague Castle. And this neoclassical monument was erected in honor of the Battle of White Mountain in 1620, a significant event in Czech history. The obelisk serves as both a commemorative marker and a striking focal point in the castle's landscape. The Great South Tower is one of the most impressive features of Vitus Cathedral, standing as the tallest point of the entire cathedral complex and one of the tallest structures in Prague. Step further to the side, and you arrive at one of the most iconic features of the Prague Castle complex: the fountain and statue of St. George. The Baroque fountain sits gracefully in front of the St. George's Basilica, its flowing water bringing a sense of calm to the otherwise grand, historical surroundings. Towering at 96.5 meters, the Great Southern Tower is an extraordinary achievement in Gothic architecture, and it offers incredible views of the city of Prague, Prague Castle, and the surrounding landscapes. Often simply referred to as the Grand Tower because of its sheer height and grandeur, it serves as a symbol of the church's dominance in both the city skyline and Czech religious life. The Vitus Cathedral itself is a magnificent Gothic masterpiece, and is the most important church in Czechia and one of the largest in the world, with a history dating back to 930 AD. However, the Gothic structure we see today wasn't completed until the early 20th century, after nearly 600 years of construction. Prague Castle is one of the most historic and iconic landmarks in Czechia, and it is the largest ancient castle complex in the world and has been the seat of Czech kings, emperors, and presidents. The castle was founded around 880 AD and it began as a fortified settlement on a hill overlooking the Vltava River. The castle has undergone continuous construction and expansion throughout the centuries, with different architectural styles reflecting the periods of construction. It combines Romanesque, Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque elements, giving it a unique blend of styles. The most famous structure within the castle complex is St. Vitus Cathedral, a Gothic masterpiece that houses the tombs of Czech kings and is a symbol of Czech national identity. Prague Castle was the home of Czech kings and later Holy Roman emperors, including Charles IV. Today, Prague Castle is the official residence of the President of the Czech Republic, and it remains a symbol of the country's rich history and a popular tourist destination. The castle complex is home to several important buildings, including the Old Royal Palace, Golden Lane, the Powder Tower, and the Royal Garden, each holding its own historical and cultural significance. The castle also played a key role in the religious history of the region, serving as the center of Catholicism in the Czech lands, with numerous chapels, churches, and shrines within its walls. Prague Castle is huge and it covers a staggering 70,000 square meters, which is about 17 acres. To really dive into the history, enjoy the gardens, and explore the lesser-known spots like the Royal Garden, Powder Tower, or the Wallenstein Palace, you should budget around 4 to 5 hours. If you're taking your time to soak in the atmosphere, rest, and read about the history, you could easily spend a whole day exploring. I was already tired and thirsty, and luckily, there's a Starbucks in Prague Castle, which is not something you might expect from such a historic site, but it provides a perfect resting spot. The Starbucks is located just outside the castle walls, in the castle courtyard, offering a modern place to take a break after exploring the castle grounds. It's a cozy spot to sit and enjoy a coffee while looking out over the city of Prague or diving into a book to learn more about the castle's history. The red color building in front is St. George's Basilica, one of the oldest and most significant churches within Prague Castle, and it was founded in the 10th century by Prince Vltava I and is a Romanesque gem. St. George's Basilica is a must-visit for history lovers, as it's deeply connected to Czech royal history and the early Christian period of the Czech lands. This is the chapter church of All Saints, just a short walk from St. George's Basilica, and it is particularly important for the Prague chapter of canons, a group of clergy that managed the cathedral and royal chapel. Jirská Street is a quaint street that leads visitors from St. George's Basilica toward the Rosenborg Palace, and it's part of the charming passageways within the castle complex that are lined with historical buildings. Walking along Jirská Street provides a great opportunity to appreciate the architectural beauty of the castle's surroundings. The street leads you through the peaceful courtyards of the castle and connects several important landmarks. Zlata Ulička o Daliborki, or the Golden Lane by Daliborka, is one of the most charming and historic spots within Prague Castle. There is even a cozy and modern cafe situated within the Prague Castle complex. It's a perfect spot to relax and recharge while exploring the historic surroundings of the castle. If you notice, the path is now starting to slope down hills, and that can only means that we are about to reach the other side of the castle complex. This is Nejvyšší pokrabství, or Supreme Burgrave's office, and it is one of the oldest and most important buildings within Prague Castle. It was once the seat of the Supreme Burgrave, a high-ranking official who was in charge of overseeing the administration of the castle and its vast lands. Today, the building houses museum exhibitions, and it's part of the Prague Castle complex, open to visitors who are exploring the castle's history and architecture. And talking about museums, this is the entrance to the House of Lobkowicz, where the Lobkowicz collections, including the manuscript of Beethoven's Symphony No. 5 and his personal compositions, can be found. Additionally, The collection features a wide range of portraits, ceramics, and historic furniture, all of which reflect the wealth and cultural influence of the Lobkowicz family through the centuries. And we are exiting the castle via this small gate, known as the Black Tower. Right beyond the gate is Vltava River, and this is a viewpoint situated on Opíš Hill, just outside the castle grounds. It offers one of the best panoramic views of Prague, especially of the Prague Castle complex itself and the Vltava River. The viewpoint is also well known for its views over the old town of Prague, the Vltava River, and even as far as the Petrine Hill. And it's a great spot for photographers and anyone wanting to capture the city's beauty from a higher perspective. On a clear day, you can see the Vltava River winding through the city, with Prague's many bridges arching over it. The Petrine Tower, often called Prague's Eiffel Tower, is clearly visible from here. Right next to Vltava River, nestled within the St. Wenceslas vineyard, you'll find Richter's street food market and the elegant Villa Richter. Set in a relaxed, vineyard atmosphere, it is a casual open-air food market offering a variety of local and international street food. It's a great spot to grab a quick bite with a stunning panoramic view of Prague. As you leave Villa Richter, the best way to descend back into the city is via the old castle stairs. The staircase dates back to the Middle Ages, originally built as part of the old fortifications leading up to Prague Castle. The stairs are flanked by sections of Prague Castle's medieval walls, giving you a sense of how fortified the area once was. Often, you'll find local musicians playing traditional Czech melodies, adding to the enchanting atmosphere. The cobblestone path, historic lanterns, and centuries-old walls create a storybook setting, especially in the early morning or evening. Once you reach the bottom of the stairs, you'll be at Pod Brusco Street, near Malostranska metro station. This is the Czech Geological Survey building and founded in 1919, it is the oldest geological research organization in the Czech Republic. After descending the old castle stairs, we turned right, and passed by the Czech Geological Survey, heading towards Staré Město. Along the way, we also passed by a small green space where locals often relax, known as Klarov Park. We paused at Marnes Bridge once again, to admire the river banks and the buildings along it. I was now properly tired from all this walking, but I need to ask you this. After watching this video for an hour now, what is your feeling of Prague? And would you also say that it is one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, or you would say it is overrated? Just take a second and soak this in. Prague Castle behind us, the Vltava flowing beneath, and right ahead, the magical streets of Old Town. And this city is something else, isn't it? I also wanna hear from you. And if you've been to Prague before, what was the moment that made you fall in love with it? And if you haven't, then what's the first thing you'd want to see or do here, in Prague? We're back at the Rudolfinum. And if this looks familiar, that's because we already showed you this part earlier in the video. So, I won't go over it again, and if you missed it, just rewind a little. Prague achieved medieval glory in the 14th century. Under King Charles IV, Prague became one of the most important cities in Europe. He built Charles Bridge, St. Vitus Cathedral, and Charles University, the oldest university in Central Europe. Prague was deeply affected by wars and revolutions, from the 30 Years' War in the 17th century to being occupied by Nazi Germany in World War II and later fell under communist rule after 1948. The Velvet Revolution in 1989 led to a peaceful uprising, marking the end of communism in Czechoslovakia. And Prague then became the capital of the Czech Republic in 1993 when Czechoslovakia split peacefully into two nations. Today, Prague is one of the most visited cities in the world. And 8 million visitors come to enjoy this amazing city yearly. The Czech Republic does not use the euro. Instead, they use the Czech koruna and kindly avoid exchange offices in tourist areas as they often have bad rates. Around 1.3 million people live within the 500 square kilometers or so, making Prague the largest city in the Czech Republic. Now I wanna hear from you. What's your favorite thing about Prague? Is it the history, the stunning architecture, or maybe the beer? So, let me know in the comments. We are now near the Church of Our Lady Before Teen, and I wanted to bring you inside. Sadly though, it was closed, so let us continue our walk. It's actually time for a little indulgence. And if you've got a sweet tooth like me, Cherna Madonna is where we're heading today. And this cozy cafe near Republic Square is one of the best places in Prague for dessert, and trust me, they have got some amazing treats. My feet were really starting to hurt, but now that we've fueled up, it's time to continue our adventure. After a few hours exploring the Prague Castle complex, we're heading into the heart of the city. We walked through the lively Jindřiška Street, with its bustling atmosphere and local shops. One of the most recognizable landmarks here is the Jindřiška Tower, a striking clock tower that dates back to the early 16th century. Located nearby is Šebek Palace, and it was built for the Šebek family, who were prominent in Prague's aristocratic circles. Jindřiška Street leads us straight towards one of Prague's cultural landmarks, which is the State Opera House. This grand building, constructed in the late 19th century, has been a beacon of cultural richness for the city, hosting some of the world's best opera and classical performances. Next up, we're heading to Vltava Sadi Park, a tranquil green space right next to the Prague main station. Standing tall in the background, Prague main station, opened in 1871, is one of the most important transportation landmarks in Prague, connecting the city with the rest of Europe through international rail services. The park itself is adorned with beautiful sculptures, well-maintained gardens, and quiet walking paths. Seen from the park, the Opera House stands as a true gem of neo-Renaissance architecture, offering not only an iconic look but an enriching cultural experience. And it is a must-see for any lover of music and history. Right in front of us is one of Prague's most iconic locations. It is also where the National Museum is located. The building itself is a major architectural landmark and one of Prague's finest examples of 19th century architecture. This is the Wenceslas Square. And here, you can't miss the Grand National Museum sitting at the top of the square, with the statue of Saint Wenceslas proudly standing right in front of it. This museum, built in 1891, is an architectural masterpiece, showcasing a stunning collection of natural history, art, and historical exhibits. The statue of Saint Wenceslas, the patron saint of the Czech Republic, stands as a tribute to this noble and revered figure who played a pivotal role in the history of the Czech lands. It's truly a must-see for anyone visiting Prague, offering not just a historical icon but a deep connection to the roots of the Czech identity. As we walk through Wenceslas Square, we're surrounded by history. From the Prague Spring to protests against communism, it's truly a place where history comes alive. And the square has long been the site for national celebrations, demonstrations, and gatherings, making it a living symbol of Prague's dynamic history. The square is also a commercial hub, filled with shops, cafes, and hotels, making it one of the busiest and most accessible areas in Prague. It's the perfect blend of history and modernity, where the old meets the new in a fascinating mix of culture and commerce. At this point, we have probably walked tens of thousands of steps. And we are not done yet, because later in the evening, we are taking a river cruise, and we are having a special dinner. We walked back to our hotel, to rest our feet for a while, but let us skip to the good parts, and let me switch on night mode and bring you around. Prague, with its scenic Vltava River running through the heart of the city, offers a range of boat experiences that allow visitors to enjoy stunning views of Prague's landmarks from the water. These boat trips provide a unique perspective of the city's architecture, bridges, and lush surroundings, making them a popular attraction for both tourists and locals. There are actually several types of boat cruises in Prague, and they range from sightseeing boat tours to dinner cruises. For those looking for a more intimate and customizable experience, private boat rentals are available. And these can range from small, romantic boats to larger vessels that can accommodate groups for celebrations or corporate events. As we board our boat, the cold February air might feel crisp, but the warmth inside the boat contrasts it with cozy interiors, and we're immediately drawn to the windows. The Vltava River, shimmering in the dark, reflects the city's lights like a mirror, offering a beautiful, almost surreal view. The mood is serene, with the only sounds being the soft hum of the boat's engine, the gentle lapping of the river against the sides of the boat. The darkness of February, combined with the twinkling lights of the city, creates an intimate and peaceful atmosphere. As we approach Charles Bridge, the view is stunning. And the bridge is beautifully lit, with street lamps casting warm yellow light across the stone, which contrasts against the deep blue of the river. Prague Castle stands majestically above the city, its silhouette illuminated against the night sky. And the lights shine brightly on the castle walls, highlighting the detailed architecture, including the St. Vitus Cathedral. The Prague skyline looks enchanting at night, and the crisp winter air adds to the experience, and it's refreshing, but not overwhelmingly cold as long as you're wrapped up warmly. A night sightseeing boat tour in Prague during February offers a unique, enchanting view of the city, darker, quieter, and more serene. There's a quiet tranquility on the river at night, and even though it's dark, the lights create a glowing pathway that highlights the city's charm. As the night settled in, we made our way from the Rudolfinum to our last stop of the evening. It is a 15-minute walk to our next destination. We are going for a delightful dinner with live music at La Bodeguita del Medio. Located in the heart of Prague, this Cuban-inspired restaurant and bar offers not just a meal but an experience that transports you to a lively, vibrant world, far from the Czech capital. While waiting for our dinner table to be ready, we went downstairs for a couple of cocktails. Stepping into La Bodeguita del Medio feels like entering a lively Havana bar. And the dimly lit space is filled with the warm glow of lanterns and the rich, nostalgic ambience of Cuba. The menu at La Bodeguita del Medio offers an authentic taste of Cuban cuisine, with a wide selection of dishes designed to satisfy your palate. As the band plays, the energy in the room seems to rise and fall with the rhythm of the music. The singers, with their rich, soulful voices, bring a warmth to the atmosphere, and the mix of the lively Cuban rhythms, the delicious food, and the joyful chatter from other diners creates an atmosphere that feels far removed from the colder, quieter Prague outside. It's a perfect way to close out the night after a day full of sightseeing and exploration. Ending our night at La Bodeguita del Medio is an experience to remember. And the live music, the flavorful Cuban dishes, and the electric atmosphere combine to create a lively and unforgettable evening. As I relax, enjoy a meal, and tap my feet to the music, I can't help but smile at how beautifully the night has come together. It's the perfect way to cap off a wonderful day in Prague, one filled with culture, history, and now, vibrant Cuban vibes to keep the energy going. And that, my friends, is Prague, a city that feels like stepping into a fairy tale, a place where history, culture, and vibrant energy come together in the most spectacular way. We spent 2 days here, and we must have walked tens of thousands of steps. From the majestic Prague Castle to the charming streets of Mala Strana, the bustling energy of the shopping district and the old square, and the enchanting Vltava River, both at night and during the day, every corner of this city tells a story. We've wandered through medieval alleyways, stood beneath centuries-old cathedrals, explored stunning palaces, and even experienced a taste of Cuban nightlife in the heart of Central Europe. Prague is a city that captures your heart and refuses to let go. And whether you visit for a weekend or a lifetime, it leaves an imprint on your soul with its timeless beauty, rich history, and unforgettable atmosphere. But now, I want to hear from you. Have you been to Prague? What was your favorite spot? Or is Prague on your travel bucket list? Drop a comment below and let's chat about this incredible city.